Welcome to Straight Talk, where we engage Kenya's brightest minds in the issues facing our nation. Today, we're joined by someone who has come to the limelight in the past year and a half, being a youth activist, engaging in civic engagement at the forefront of the protests that happened in 2024. Mr. Kasmuel Macoure.
Mcoure. Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Yvonne.
You have come to the limelight within the past year and a half.
Right.
And I think the first question anyone would ask you is, how did that come to pass?
Oh, that's interesting because that's what people remember at a national scale. Mm-hmm. I've been organizing and mobilizing even for protests and walks since I was a student leader at the Technical University of Kenya. Mm-hmm. I was first in the mental health and wellness space, also in my exploits in music and education and performance. But interestingly, in 2021, I led the Fungua Nchi campaign, which was a campaign against the lockdown, if you remember, during Corona times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, that might not have gotten national attention, but I would say organizing at a national scale, because some of the people who we organized with in 2021 ended up being some of my most consequential comrades in 2020 and 24.
So that sparked your interest in civic engagement?
It did. In terms of mobilization, because when I'm looking at last year, I was not looking at it as civic engagement geared towards a political agenda. Mm-hmm. The politics was inspired by a few incidences. The first time I voted was 2017, and I was in Kisumu at the time. Those polls were very repressed, especially because the people in Kisumu were against the regime at the time.
It was quite contested.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And there were body bags being sent. There was we saw very heavy-handed machinations from the state. Then in 2022, when we lost the election as Azimio, I was part of the young people who were involved in His Excellency Raila Odinga's campaign, but not in the ordinary sense.
That was in 2017?
No, in 2022.
So
okay. 2017, I just voted. In 2022, I was involved in the campaign, but mm-hmm. I was a musician. Mm-hmm. So we were the band that played when His Excellency was launching his presidential bid in Kasarani.
Oh. So you then played a part in the campaigns in 2022.
Yes.
Pro-Azimio as they campaigned.
Yes.
And then we then saw you come to prominence then in 2024.
Yes.
During the protests.
Right.
What inspired you to come forward? Especially during the demonstrations.
So the demonstrations were, I can't say pre-planned, mm-hmm. because for me, they were coming after a very tumultuous time. I was going through some personal mental struggles, and I just come from a really difficult year career-wise. I'd been working too hard in 2023, multiple jobs, and I think I had a crash out in 2024. But I remember going for the first demonstration on the 18th. That day, we were going for demonstrations just because we believe in organizing and mobilizing, but we didn't go into it thinking, hey, this is the thing we want to do. I had read the finance bill and I disagreed with it. I disagreed with a few key issues. The eco levy, that meant that pads were going to be more expensive, diapers were going to be more expensive, because in 2023, I had done a project on period poverty in Kibra. And it's the first time I actually understood, despite being fairly educated, understood the ramifications of what women and girls go through during the menstruation cycle. And we went to do just the regular donor things that we do where you take pads. And we went to this particular school and they said that, okay, you've brought us pads, reusable or not, where are we going to wear them on? Because we do not even have innerwear. And yes, if we get them, where are we going to throw them? So sanitation becomes an issue. So you realize that it's not just enough for you to take pads.
There's an institutional problem.
Absolutely. And it had not hit me prior to that. I'm one of those guys, I love my sisters very much. I have two of them. And I'd take them back to school, because we grew up not having a lot. So when I started making a bit of money, I'd do shopping for my sisters. And I look at them and would go to like the pad aisle and I'd tell them, take that one that's written Ultra. I thought that pads just worked like smartphones, the one that's written Ultra, Mega. That's how it works. Mm-hmm. But then now in 2023 that happened. Then in 2024 there was a march against femicide, and that's when I knew something. The country is on the brink of something, and this is something we need to pay attention to. I've worked a lot in as an ally with feminist organizations and organizing, and when we went for that walk, remember there's a girl who had been hacked to death, and the people who had just people reduced the conversation to people should not, or sijui affair or whatever, and I felt that needed to be amplified. I just did not know. I was feeling very helpless, but I walked with my friends for that march. It was a very peaceful march, but people really, really turned up, and it was the best organized march I've ever seen in the country. Then a few months later, the protests happened. So that was in the eco levy. There was the taxation on basic commodities like bread, if you can remember. Fuel was doing crazy numbers at the time, and there were just very many hidden costs.
So really, there was the temperature leading up to the protests in 2024, there was just like a simmering in the air of just dissatisfaction within especially Gen Z in Kenya.
Right.
And that's how you came to prominence at the forefront of the protests. Alongside social media as well.
Right.
And before we get into your role in the protests and what has happened after, social media has really played a really big role in what has transpired after, and that goes in and along your struggle with mental health.
Right.
Many people struggle with that. How have you been dealing with that aspect?
I mean, just regular self-destruction. But now, I think after 2024, I realized that it's even more critical now to ensure that I'm in my best shape. And best state of mind, as hard as that might be. Because one, people weaponize everything. In this political sphere, there's no mercy. Everything is fair game. People will make fun of anything. People will make fun of whatever episodes you have. And so I just decided to, because previously my content used to be around mental health and wellness. If anything, I was a consultant just before the protests for big companies as a mental wellness advocate and champion. We'd do like town halls, we'd go to cities and just have the community speak to itself. Currently, beyond sports and music and just deep meditation, I just realized that I no longer have the latitude of being able to just go out and go on like a self-destructive path. So there's the rotting. When I say self-destruction, I don't necessarily mean drugs. I mean, I can't. That's kind of tricky for a lot of people, but even more in this sphere.
How do you deal then with criticism? Because even before we get into your political background, many young people will look at you and see how much criticism you faced on social media. And it's not just where your political leanings may be, it's your appearance, your look, whatever it might be. And that might be very discouraging to people who face it, maybe not on a scale that you do. How would you how do you handle that?
I think most of it is stuff that, because I was raised funny. In the sense that, and I usually advocate that people should be raised around funny people, because then you get to navigate a lot. Yeah, and quite funny. I mean, like humorous, because then even the nicknames that you get, people tell you, oh, you have big eyes or whatever, or you're dark. You realize that pretty early. And nowadays, of course, there's a whole discourse around parenting and whatever that I will not get into. But some of it, gets to you, and one day you just wake up and consistently, because the phone seems to be a world of its own. And that much hate, I don't think as human beings we were meant to consume that much information about yourself consistently by faceless people. So some of it used to really affect me in 2024, and then they just got to a point where I said I will no longer engage. So I do not go out to follow people who would trigger me or whatever. And also the way my social media is organized, at least my public facing accounts, in such a way that the feed does not take me to the regular junk that people have, because I don't follow anyone on social media. So it's tailored to the kind of feed I want. Unless I go looking, it does not come to me. So unless people, of course, comment hateful things on under the posts, which got to a point where I said I'm not engaging as much as
those are then misconceptions about you, not necessarily who you are.
Yeah. But of course, then some people it can get really nasty, especially towards me. I've seen really, really nasty rhetoric going on online. I've seen propaganda. I've seen people threaten my life. People say like the really, really hateful
Family
stuff.
as well.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's
people
spills
track
over.
you down. They can find you where you are.
Yeah.
That can be very scary.
It
And I know a
is.
lot of youth experience that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I can't necessarily say that I know how to deal with it. Most of it is because I have a very healthy community, and also I have a God who watches over me. But beyond that, I can't say that I have it figured out. But definitely, experiences that have come from my past, I think, have been able to shape me and give me the mettle to navigate whatever this is.
There has to then also be a level of discernment. Yes, because we're seeing that social media is being manipulated a lot, especially internet, being manipulated a lot to skew people's perspectives.
Yeah.
And we saw that within the protest, which you experience. Some people say, let's go to State House. Some people say, let's not. Or some people say, he's a mole, he's not. I've been abducted, I haven't.
Yeah.
How do we fight that going forward as a youth? How do we disseminate that misinformation?
I don't think we will deal with that. We will just learn how to live with it in society. Because then if we decide to go that route, the route of trying to police social media, especially because, it's different in the sense that it is not based, a lot of these applications or sites are not based in Kenya, and they do not owe their allegiance to our government or to our people. And just the way social media is oriented it's like it's on a first come first serve basis, but then it's also fast. I could call it digital fast food.
But then we're also using it.
Matter.
We're using it to disrupt information.
Yeah.
And also to what's it called? To almost disintegrate a popular movement.
Yeah.
And we've seen it. That happened during the protests as well.
Yeah.
What mechanisms can we use to fight that?
I think because the same way it can be used for evil is the same way it can be used for good. Just the same way people are using it to spread disinformation and misinformation. It's the same way we used it to organize and pull off the most successful protest the country has ever seen, the most populous, the most inclusive. So I think these are contradictions that will exist within each other, and eventually, because remember, the internet has not been with us at this scale for that long. Most of these applications are less than 20 years old. So
do you think we place too much reliance on it? If
probably,
you imagine Tanzania has had its protests with no internet and managed to organize themselves and find a way to get their voices heard.
Yeah.
Perhaps in Kenya we place too much reliance on social media and the internet.
I don't think so, because a lot of the people that we organized with, even from the informal settlements, are not particularly chronically online. It does help that we have the internet and that we can be able to communicate. That's why I feel like that's why we communicated our gains. That's why people who could not be able to make it to the streets would vent. Eventually, you cannot prevent human beings. When the pressure builds to a point where it needs to be released, internet or not, it's going to be released. So I don't think we've over-relied on it. Some people are using it irresponsibly. It's the minority that are too loud on social media, especially the people who've built cult followings. And right now you realize the more graphic, the more gore the content you put out, the bigger, the juicier, that we've gotten to the point where we've commodified each other so bad that the person who gives me the most jarring information, that's the person I would want to. I don't need to verify. It just needs to be availed to me. It's just our generation. We have phones, just the same way there was a time newspapers were the thing and people would play code words, and there was a time people would have televisions. But for my generation, it becomes expensive. So this is now our digital playground, especially without these other spaces.
That has come with the issue of monetization.
Yes.
Retweets, likes,
yes,
views,
because now
all
we
of
just
that.
we buy into the hype. And now I want to say, so I realized at some point, and I bought into the hype as well.
And that happened, especially amongst the protests.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of fed off this high
Yeah.
of the retweets and the audience that was given in terms of saying, oh, this is happening, or this is happening, without stating specifics.
I'll state specifics. I'll use myself as an example, in the sense that I bought into the hype. Like the moment, and I remember, I don't know if I've said this before, but the blue check mark was one of our revolution's greatest enemies. Because at that time, and remember, you used to you'd get the blue check mark, and then in 1 month, you're paid $100, you're paid 80, you're paid 200, then you realize, oh, this could be, and then you'd I'd tweet something, and it would be, I'd just wake up and tweet something, and it would blow up, and then you'd find that after the finance bill, to be honest, personally, I went to the street for the finance bill, and then, of course, I got popular, or I got famous, and all, just went through the regular social media cycle. Then now you're roped into an agenda that you've not thought through. For the finance bill, I could demystify. But then for these other ones where you find there are several players playing games. There's civil society who are out on their own agenda. There's certain sinister players in the background from political parties. By the time it's getting to us saying that the president has to go, I didn't quite understand what that was. I should have taken a step back. But do I regret it? I do not, because that's the only way I would have learned. It's the only way I would have learned the things that I have learned.
So you say that you disagree with the chant Ruto must go?
I don't disagree with it. I'm just saying my involvement in driving the Ruto must go agenda. Because there's a time, by the time we're doing Ruto must go, remember this is July. The chant changes to Ruto must go in July. Before then, and this is tailored specifically to our revolution, because remember, yes, Ruto must go was also there in 2023 protests, but when it's actively let us march to State House, it's around the 27th of June, and then now we're getting into July. By the time the agenda is for us to kick out the president from State House, what was the sequence of events that led to that? Because we said, kick out the finance bill was not assented. We said, dismantle the cabinet was dismantled. And then we just kept asking, and we didn't consolidate our gains. And then there was no central command center where we would say, this is where we wanted to go. So everybody would just come up with their own idea. And now it's a collection of big accounts. So you say this or you're going to get canceled. Say this. It was just the herd mentality.
All right. Okay. I think I still want to have this conversation of social media influencing, retweets, activism, all of that kind of fall hand in hand with one another. Nowadays people are saying, and there's a critique of activists out there, you can't make money from your activism. You can't live well off your activism. And it's not just, maybe not just you, but other activists out there who, somebody would say, oh, he lives really well, or he has a big car. How would you respond to that?
Specifically to me, or just the general question?
Just generally.
Okay, so if we were to think about it generally, it is hard to make money from activism unless you have your papers right, you have your organization, and then now you can attract donor funding. Should
you make money from activism? Should you be profitable from doing activism for the Republic of Kenya, as an example?
I think you should be able to make a living, you should be able to make a living or a decent living in whatever sphere of work you choose.
Okay.
If it is the pursuit of reforms, so be it, but then let it not be taking advantage of the working poor, because the model that I disagree with, is where we want to, like what I saw, part of what I saw last year is there was photo ops where now we go and posture in front of the crowd, and then when it's time for the tear gas, people retreat and they go into the Javas and whatever's. Then when it's time for 4 o'clock news, then we come back. And that, I think that is wrong. But if you're in research, for example, if you're doing papers and you're organizing within communities and you've managed to write proposals and attract funding, I don't see a problem with that. The problem I have is when now we turn that, we become the very thing that we want to destroy, which is empire or unfairness. But by and large, I didn't get into activism to make money because I was I've had decent work experience. I've worked in the top schools, top international schools. I've consulted as a musician and as a teacher. I had my own peripatetic practice, which had a decent hourly rate. So I didn't go to the streets with the aim of making money. When I realized that there was people making money, I got really mad. And I walked away from those people. And some of them are actually still mad to this time, because I exposed and I walked and I didn't turn my back at all. So that's when I said, okay, now I need to go into political parties, because political problems require political solutions. It cannot be that we are activists for the same thing and we do not have legislative power. We are not organizing to take political power to become either members of county assemblies or members of the bicameral house, which is both the lower house and the upper house. If we are not showing meaningful steps towards occupying these positions where we can directly influence legislation by participating in the process, I don't think there's much that we will achieve.
So for you then, in terms of going forward, there must be a drive towards the youth partaking in institutions of leadership.
Yes.
How do we reimagine that kind of leadership? Because everybody seems to be out to make their own money.
Yeah.
What changes?
I think politics, first of all, must not be looked as a profitable endeavor. We must love the country for the sake of the country. We all have to invest in this Kenyan project, and we must support people who want the best for the Kenyan project. Personally, and I see now everybody's starting to appreciate him. I'm very glad that I got to work under His Excellency the Right Honorable Raila Odinga, because he actually loved the country. He had pure love for the country, and we need to make more of such people who are not dealers. Because if we think of politics or leadership in our country as the shortest avenue, you think about most of our third world countries. Politics and religion are the most profitable. Of course, that can be said even in the global,
across the world.
It can be said across the world, but
yes.
But here, chiefly, we have billionaires who do not have industry. We have billionaires who do not have a single product. So how do you become a billionaire? If not through looting? We have to reimagine the issue of campaign financing, because if I have to spend, for example, 100 million for me to get a seat, who will spend 100 million for the sake of spending 100 million?
And how do they not recuperate their money?
Yes, because now everybody now is thinking of recouping.
Yes.
So if I spend 100 million of my money, trust me, if I get to the office, that's the other thing that the people are going to do. That's why if we do not rethink that campaign financing, for example.
But the issue is here, if I spend 100 million and I get into parliament and I can make 500 million, I have no motivation to change that legislation at all.
Right.
And there is a severe compromise of every single member of parliament that we have in Kenya today. How do you change that if you are elected?
The first place, first of all, you need to inspect these affirmative action funds, like CDF. Consolidate CDF, put it in one fund. There's no use for a government to give money to another arm of government. So the people pay taxes to the government. Government gives, Treasury Executive gives money to legislature. Legislature gives this money back to the people. People pay it back to the government. There's no need. Just consolidate this fund, collapse it, then make education free, for example. But then money has to be taken away from the executive. This is a conversation that's a bit futuristic, because I know it will not happen in 2027. Neither will it happen in 2032 with the direction of things. But if the Treasury is still, if the president still has money, it becomes really hard for you to convince members of parliament not to give in to the whims of the president. If we have an independent treasury, for example, and these are proposals that we are still even discussing within the Youth League, if we can have money and the treasury that is independent, that nobody can just wake up and sign a loan on behalf of Kenyans. Nobody can just wake up and pass unfair legislation or just withdraw. You see the way people say that on this particular election,
someone walked away with 1 million or 100 million.
Or on the election day that we lost 12 billion.
Yeah.
That should not happen if we do not have. So these are some of the things that need to happen, for example. Then it takes away the allure of you just getting in here for profit of self. but also ensure that the politicians are, well paid and that they have good terms in such a way, just the Singaporean way, which you ensure now that we'll give you a wage that's decent, that allows you, that's enough for your needs and just a bit of luxury, but not for your greed.
But also we lack a leadership culture, right? We've been told how people are bribed in toilets.
Yeah.
Several amounts, not to get into the technicalities.
Yeah.
It's also that our leaders may lack a bit of integrity or love for their people, their constituents. What do you think?
In all honesty, I will sympathize with our leaders. The current, because I've seen politicians up close and I've seen the citizens up close. The current dispensation which we have dehumanizes even these politicians, which in turn leads them to dehumanize the people that they're supposed to serve. Because if I see you and all you expect from me is 200 shillings or 1,000 shillings, I do not need to waste my time trying to convince you with ideology. I do not need to waste my time coming to Overture Media.
So the handout culture.
The handout culture.
Facilitates.
It does facilitate bad leadership because somebody might honestly want to change things, but then we will not give you the time of day to explain to us what are these reforms or institutional systemic changes that you want to institute without you giving us handouts. So you get swallowed up by the tide. So we need to change the zeitgeist, the spirit of our times, and we also need to change the culture that we have, the software culture.
Which culture?
Just
expound
the
on
culture
that.
for us as a people, for expecting Mheshimiwa's idea, that handout culture, it needs to be weeded out. It is not isolated because it is caused by social political forces, in the sense that if someone is poor, you have to give them bread first before you give them ideology. And they're poor because the system is not working to their advantage. There's unemployment, massive unemployment. We've not created safety nets, even in terms of healthcare and whatnot. A lot of people are still living below the poverty line. First, we have to figure out how we can elevate them to the point where now we can reason. Because remember, even part of the people who went to the streets last year, they went to the street because they had nothing to lose but their miserable lives. Until we can make them at least have something worth living for, then we can change the conversation.
But our leaders have never tried to elevate us. Neither have we ever tried to ask our leaders to elevate us. How do we change that mentality? If every time any person I vote for is a person who gave me 200 shillings before I went to vote, or 500 shillings, because that's the only change I see within my environment, how do we change the electorate's thinking?
That will very heavily depend on service delivery. Because even part of the reason why the electorate demands that 200, that 500 shilling note, that 1,000 shilling note, is they know that the next time they're going, do not know the next time they're going to see their leader. Because you elected me somewhere in Chini, with my home county in Nyatike.
You say service delivery, but if there's no service going to happen,
if no service will happen, we will not
change
that handout culture. Because how then will I ever feel nguvu ya serikali? How will I ever feel my Mheshimiwa's presence? Does that make sense? So therefore, the only way I can interact, the only tangible thing I can see, because if we erect schools and we show them a pipeline where this is where we have our schools, we have our healthcare systems, and there's an assurance that this is the pipeline you will go to once you even graduate, then I can say, we started like this and this is where we're going. But for several people, you find leaders, someone has been an MP for 20 years, they still do not have tarmac roads. So the person who brings a road then becomes a messiah. They become a savior.
And the road has never come still.
Yeah, so they're just like, tutatengeneza tena hii, mkinipatia tutatengeneza hii, mkinipatia tutatengeneza.
What would you do different if you were running as an MP?
First, people make it look like it's easy to run for elective office. Even an MCA, it's very hard. It's a very difficult seat to get. So first, I think that's a point which young people need to start, we need to learn and get exposed to. Because from my sitting with politicians, I've seen that this is a craft that requires social investment. First, we even need to make sure that we are electable. Then once we are elected, we can see what to do.
Are you electable?
I would hope so, but I'm still a ways. I'm still far because I'm still learning. I'm still meeting people.
What do you feel as a standard for you is electable?
First, you need to be well educated because education helps you, one, see things objectively, but also it enables you to be empathetic to other people's struggles.
Okay.
Two, you need to have a heart for the people. And So that's why I will not go and run in a constituency whose interests I do not know or whose interests I do not have. So it just cannot be that because I have money then I can run, which has been the case, where I'm like, just look for money. But I think we need to be educated. We need to have the needs of the hearts of the people. But we also need to want to change the Kenyan project so badly enough that we are willing to invest our time in it. Then that's when I'll make legislation that is fair. That's when I will look out for the rights of the people. That's when donors or donor funding will not look like something attractive for my own pocket, but for the betterment of our community. Then 3, you also need to build a following that is solid enough. As David D said, he said a very annoying thing, but he is one of the people who radicalized me politically, because he said politics is a contact sport. You have to be in touch with the people. So I have to, once I have identified the people that I think I want to represent, I have to present myself to them and tell them, these are my ideas, sharpen contradictions. Then I can see if I am electable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where would you imagine yourself running, just out of curiosity?
I currently am still mapping out the data, because now you see I also exist in a political party. Mm-hmm. I might think that I want to run, but then the party might think you would be better on this other position. You'd be better in this other envoy. Currently, I've devoted at least my 20s, the remainder of my 20s, to learn, but also to really, really strengthen the political that I come from, which is the Orange Democratic Movement. So I'm not too keen on where I want to run. I think of myself as an urban person, but what if change needs to happen in my home village? What if that's a place that would really need my voice? But we need to get to the point where in Kenya I would just sit and say, no, I want to run in Kiambu.
We have this issue, right? Where somebody, you live in Nairobi, but you vote in Ocha somewhere else, and you don't really engage in what's going on there.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's to say, where you live is where you should engage yourself.
I agree with you. I think we need to see more of that.
Yes.
Yeah, but also, the electorate is also really smart in certain situations. They will just tell you, no, but you do not know the struggles of this place. You do not come from here. You do not live here. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You need to, if you're going to vie for a place which you have passion for, a place where you go to, a place which you deeply understand. Because otherwise you'll just think that, what I need for these people is just to build churches or build whatever. What they need is drinking water and schools. Okay. Yeah.
As an ODM member, I know there's a very interesting battle coming up for Nairobi. We have several young members proposed to lead the capital city.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the proposed battle ahead?
You see, the good thing about existing in ODM is that there will be nominations. Mm-hmm. So you could have your feelings or whatever, but we intend to have free and fair nomination process. The person who wins is the person I'll have thoughts about, because currently anyone could be governor. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You could be governor, I could be governor. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nick could be governor. So it doesn't matter. But the person who wins the nomination of the party is the person who will throw our support behind.
I really like your support of ODM and your belief in its idea behind the processes of how it should operate. It isn't how many other political parties operate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think if there's one thing His Excellency taught us, is belief in the process. Because remember, he knew how corrupt the Kenyan judiciary is. This is an open secret, and even the president of the Apex Court has said part of the things that bedevil the judiciary is high corruption. But he still went through the court processes. So that's what I've learned, is belief in the processes. People might have their doubts, they might have their qualms, but we need enough people to believe in that process, because that's the only way we can change it. We have to believe that we will have free and fair nominations. If enough people believe that, then if we see a case of deviation from the norm, we will say that, no, then we will not stand this. But I think I'm still quite optimistic that due process will be followed, specifically even with the Orange Democratic Movement, because I've seen there's been a great deal of progress around that. We had elections last year and this year. We had some challenges in very, very minute areas, but those have been amicably resolved. And if anything, the reason which makes it even easier is it's the most compliant party according to the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties. So that, seeing that culture that has been built over 20 years, I think for us as young people, it's our responsibility now to even rejuvenate it even further and take it to the next 20.
You say belief, but there is still a lot of voter apathy amongst not just the youth, but in Kenya in general. How do we get more people to believe in the system?
It will be hard. And that's why I keep on saying that we will need a person who believes in the country more than they do believe in themselves, a person who's also paid the price. The thing about it, and I was even thinking, this is a confession I have to make, is Raila was the reason I used to wake up to go and vote. For the 2 times that I voted for him, the 2 times I've been eligible to vote, he used to be the guy. I used to wake up and look for Raila on the ballot. Now, who am I going to look for at the ballot? So the person who's going to be able, if you think you've seen apathy, if we're not careful as a country, we will see even worse apathy in this upcoming election.
And that's affecting as well the voter registration drive as well, and getting more of the youth to register to vote.
Right, because I've even seen some really, really creative incentives where people have said, even certain shops have said that we will give you a particular discount on our products if you take up the vote. The amount of people who are on the streets vis-a-vis the people who are participating in this continuous voter registration, they're not in the. There's far less people registering. Like in Nairobi, I've only seen 4,000 so far. Do you remember we had people in the thousands?
Well,
on the
there's
streets.
complaints about tampering in terms of voter registration, but yes, there is some apathy going on.
But think about it. That tampering cannot happen yet. Yeah. That's why I keep on saying we have to push. We need to ensure that we get...
You have a belief in the system.
Not even in the system. I have a radical belief in the country that we can make it work. We cannot stay back just because we think it's going to be rigged. If that is what would happen, Raila would never have offered himself up for election after 2007. It was the most blatant disregard of these things. But we have to constantly have such incapacitating optimism to the point where it will engulf whatever forces of darkness we think there be.
I listen to you and I hear ideas and ideology coming from not ODM, but certain other candidates that are putting themselves up as potential presidential candidates in 2027. Do you imagine that ODM as a party, or even you yourself, would say, actually, let's put aside our political affiliations and let's just support this person who reflects the views of Kenyans?
So that's an interesting one, because political parties are formed chiefly with the intention of capturing power and administering state. Yes. And so for you to administer state, it means you need to put your best foot forward. Nobody forms a political party so that they can lose an election. And that's why you even hear when my party leader, Dr. Oburu Oginga, speaks, he says that ODM will no longer be in the opposition. We will be the party that will form government. And if you think about our odds are pretty, they're looking pretty healthy in this coming election. So it's up to, and that's why I was saying that the person who will take over the country we have a copious amount of idealists. We need a person who will, one, have the best interests of the country at heart, and two, a person who will mobilize and build consensus. Currently in the Orange Democratic Movement, we're confident in that because we are not devoid of leaders. We have quite a couple of people who could vie for leadership under the Orange Democratic Movement and still capture power. Also, we are looking into, going by the words of my party leader, into being in a coalition that will administer state. So if someone looks at it, because remember, it's the rivers that feed into the lake. We do not ask a lake to now go and form estuaries somewhere down there. If there are people who believe that they have the best ideal for the country, or they have the best chances of winning the presidency, that's why even you've heard some of our leaders say, even the president, if he's seeking a re-election, he is invited to come and submit himself to the processes of the Orange Democratic Movement. And if they win, then they become our presidential candidate. So we will not it's like telling us, for this thing that you've been building for 20 years, let's just throw it away so that we can go on the whims of a populist candidate. I don't think it would be prudent or wise to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
5 minutes with the president.
Yeah.
What would you tell him?
First,
how would you advise him?
As if, first of all, I just tell him, as a race, I've been pigwad sana. And I've only met the president twice in my life. I've met him in Eldoret and I met him in Addis during the campaign. And we've had very brief conversations then. But I don't know where people get this idea that I'm always in cahoots with the president.
Not in helicopters flying around. That is
with the prime minister.
Oh,
the prime minister.
Excuse me.
That one with him, and I told him everything. And I'm actually very glad that in his last year, he mentored me. At the time when young people were just calling him names and whatnot, I'm so glad. I usually say that's one of the most consequential decisions I have made in my adult life. That one only comes close to baptism. But with the president of the country, I think, because we're also getting into an electoral period, I'd tell him to let it trickle down. I know that his economic model was the bottom up, and it's a pretty solid ideology if you look at it. If we just strip away our bias, it's a model that's supposed to uplift us socially. It's very welfareist, very, very central leaning. But we need the resources and the benefits and the perks of government not to just stay at the upper echelons. They need to trickle down and get to the people. Let's just see more service delivery. Let's see more investment in the youth. Let us see empowerment and raising of new leaders, because a lot of people are trying to block the upcoming talent. It would be nice to see reforms specifically. Other people can tell the president other things, but personally, I have a burden for police reforms and compensation of victims of police brutality. That's what I would focus on. There's a panel that's currently being taken to court. It's been constituted under Professor Mcoure, and it has several members like Akina Gabriel Okuda, Akina Polochar. Those individuals, they're being fought left, right, and center. But I think the work that they're doing, one, in honoring Raila Odinga's legacy, because this is something he was very keen on. He didn't just want compensation for victims of police brutality from 2024. He wanted us to go all the way back, even from 2017. Find these families, give them some sort of reprieve. And the whole point of this panel of compensation is, one, acknowledge that these atrocities happened. Two, enact legislation, because the principles have members of parliament, legislation that ensures our country does not sink and descend to such pits. And three, amortize and have a form of financial reprieve. Yes, we might not bring back their lives, but at least acknowledge and give them some sort of fidya. Then in terms of police reforms, just ensure that even the policemen, because a lot of the time, it cannot be that we want to send the worst, we call them the worst things, while they put their lives on the line. Ensure that even their living conditions, they can just be improved, because they're humans just like us. Ensure they have better pay and they have uniforms, and at the very least, if we can have body cams, so that this can be part of the reforms. Part of the other reforms that I'm suggesting is, if a policeman commits a crime that is heinous, the officer of the commanding station should be charged alongside. So personally, I just look at two things: police reform and compensation of victims of police brutality. I'm hoping that other people will raise other things, but those two are my chief things. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yes.
So you, as we wrap up, you are now a very prominent youth leader within ODM.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're feeling very hopeful about that, heading towards 2027.
Yes.
Yes.
I think I'm just a delegate of the Orange Democratic Movement. I'm just very outspoken. We're still going for some elections, and I will know my fate next year. But I'm still committed to the party. I believe that there will be free and fair and credible, justifiable, all those things that we stand for. But I'm confident that where the Orange Democratic Movement will be is where the state will be administered in 2027. And so I just urge young people, one, to join the Orange Democratic Movement or join political parties. Take a front seat in the governance of your country. It cannot be that we want to just participate as voters. Let us offer ourselves up for leadership.
I think what you're saying really is that we can't just tweet.
Yeah.
Yes. if you want to see a change
Yes.
within your environment, you really have to partake within the political system.
Yes, we must. We cannot. Just the cliche poem was based in the communist times when first they came for the communists, but I did not say a word because I was not one, and they came for everybody, and they will come for the socialist, and I wasn't. Came for the industrialist, for the lobbyist, for whoever. Then they will come for me, and then they'll come for you, and you'll have no one to speak
So would
for
that
you.
be the same when somebody says that's why Kasmuel joined ODM?
I don't think so. Joining the Orange Democratic Movement, one, is part of us having a vibrant democracy. Because a lot of the people have had reservations and said, oh, this and that. But it cannot be that the revolution that was leaderless was hinged upon one individual. It cannot be that 10 months later, that why aren't there new voices emerging? If we should have had the support and thus said, okay, now we're giving you this responsibility, then don't join a political party. We will form a political party and you will lead it, you will head it. We would not need, because we would have 14 million votes. That one we would not need to negotiate with anybody.
Was it a betrayal, you think, joining ODM?
No, not at all. It was an act of good conscience, and I would do it earlier. I would do it in June, actually.
But
knowing what I know, I did it. I joined in October. Should have
Yes.
joined in June. But I've always been an ODM member. It's just that
you are now a vocal member.
I was vocal member, one, but two, I was also close to His Excellency, Right Honorable Raila Odinga. I think if I knew what I know now, I would have met him earlier. I would have joined him earlier, because the backlash doesn't come close to the stuff I've learned from him. It doesn't come close to the mentorship. It doesn't come close to the fount of wisdom that is the Raila Odinga Academy of Leadership.
I think these critiques are really based on the fact that there's a mistrust. Yes.
Yeah.
Every single person, well, not every single person, that's me misspeaking, but many of the people who came to the forefront and arose out of the protests in June 2024 have been accused of wanting to gain personally from the protests. Alongside you joining a political party and now having a very prominent voice, having met your political mentor, you seem to have benefited off the protests.
I met my life's hero, man. If that's a benefit, Raila Odinga for me was a hero. He's always been a figure in my life.
He is a hero. He's a shuja.
And
yes.
That's like someone meeting Superman. It's the people who are never going to meet him, the people who spent his last year insulting him, and now they're just writing poetry day in, day out.
That still doesn't lend to the critique.
I'm going back to that because
Yes.
I get very excited when I'm speaking about him. I miss him so much. If there is, first of all, there's no such thing as a front line. This thing is a circle. People should emerge. People should consistently emerge. Because it cannot be that you outsource the betterment of your country to one person and say that you have mistrust. Your mistrust will not lower the price of bread. You have to consistently fight.
The tag was tribeless, leaderless, what was the other? Something.
Fearless.
Fearless.
Yes,
so
but
whatever
then
it
people
is.
retreated to their tribal cocoons.
Yes.
Part of the insults I've gotten were tribal. Then people were saying they were leaderless, but they've been dragging me for the past 1 year. I don't want to say it, but it seems then that I was somewhat consequential.
Or the lack of leaderlessness was a detriment to the movement?
No, it served its purpose, to be honest. That amorphous organization really, really saved a lot of young people. But then we should have not been afraid to take the reins of leadership. We should have just said that now we're instituting this.
How would you have taken them?
I would have, with our people, the people that we were organizing with, we should have been braver and said that we are the leaders of this movement and this is how we want to interface with the government. Because people are saying that they're afraid of compromise. A lot of these people on very dubious payrolls and whatnot. It does not prevent the Republic from moving, but people are not brave enough to state their allegiance. I was brave enough to say that I am joining first. I am going to devote my life to Raila Odinga for the rest of his days. That's what I remember. It's a commitment I made to him. For as long as he's alive, I have put my ambitions aside. I just want to learn and to defend his legacy. 2, I said I'm joining the Orange Democratic Movement, and I did that very loudly. But remember, the criticism was not as heavy for people who joined other parties, and these people were still hobnobbing with these politicians. As Kenyans, if you get into the political circle, you'll realize that 1, there are no permanent enemies in politics. And 2, it's about consensus building. It's not about it does not change. What people don't seem to understand is I did not change my ideology. I just changed my strategy. I was organizing amorphously. Now I'm organizing a political party. But it's still, the goal still remains. For me, we need to have police reforms and we need to have the compensation of victims of police brutality. That, whoever promises me that, I do not care. That's the person I'll go to.
So if this broad-based government was to fail to reflect the policies that you speak of, it would mean that you would then withdraw from ODM?
From the broad-based, because the ODM is just a political party. It's a political party in whose ideology I believe in. Remember, I was leading 63 organizations, and amongst them political parties. I would have joined some of them because they have some of these popular figureheads. I would have joined some of them. But I did an analysis and said, this is the particular political party I want to join. Yeah, so we will reform it from here where we are in this youth league. We're not devoid of ideas or of bright people. And so I'm open to learning. Yeah.
I like that idea. I think people in Kenya, we've seen a lot of political party hopping.
Yeah.
Yes. All around. But you're really saying my blood is
I'm a chungo
over
guy.
here. Yeah. And if there's an issue, we shall reform it from within until we get where we need to go.
Yeah.
Okay. All right then. Any person out there who wishes to enter into youth leadership, how would you tell them to proceed?
This is a good time because the country is fairly calm. Meet a lot of people. Politics is a contact sport. Meet the people, face the people, get over your fear, because there will never be a time when it's just enough to be on screens. You have to get on the ground. Form a team. It doesn't have to be a big team. Find people who believe in you and share with them the vision and let them walk with you, because that's the other thing I didn't do. I didn't establish a team when I needed to establish a team. Don't worry about the money. Get your ideology right. Study, study, study. It is the duty, it is the work of anyone who's a revolution to study. Don't be stupid.
I'm sorry, that's a crazy statement.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the money.
Don't worry about the money.
I would imagine the money is everything.
Don't worry
How
about
do you
the money.
begin?
Don't worry about the money.
Yes.
I don't have money. Yeah.
That's
but
what
I'm a
many
leader.
people say, yes.
I'm a leader. I'm telling you, I do not have it. If I had it, I wouldn't be wasting my time. You think I like to be dragged online by random people to use a 1, 2, 3, 4, 9, 6 passing propaganda? No, you don't. Your heart really needs to be there for the people in such a way that you can learn how to fight for people without fighting them. So study, understand what it is that you want. What will it take? Probably it will take me 40 years to achieve what I want to achieve, to be the kind of leader I want to be. And maybe I might not even achieve it. I might not be the thing, and I might not make it into elective office. I might not, but my heart has to ensure that it does not matter whether or not I am in office. I should be able to pursue these changes that I seek. So for a young person, let's not even just prioritize the money. It will come. Money follows ideas.
Okay.
Yeah.
And as we wrap up, I also would like to ask you, what policies should we see you pursuing on behalf of the youth if you were to be elected as a leader?
Personally, right now, I'm only focused on police brutality and the compensations of victims of police brutality. That is the one thing that I'm really keen on. I believe that other people should be keen on education. They should be keen on the audits of odious debt. They should be keen on corruption and whatnot. But the thing that I am most passionate about, because the Orange Democratic Movement has borne the brand of police brutality, is that at least for the Revolutionary Youth League at the Orange Democratic Movement, if we can have reforms in the police service and compensation of victims of police brutality, that would be a first. That's the thing which I will give topmost priority.
Thank you, Kasmuel. I have enjoyed having this conversation with you about the issues of our nation.
Right.
And you are a very inspiring person, somebody who pushes through not just critique online, critique in your personal environment, your professional environment, but just always inspiring.
Thank you for having me, Yvonne.
As
are you, I really enjoyed the show.
Asante.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching Straight Talk, where we engage with Kenya's brightest minds. Tune in again.